So when we were thinking about what to do for our sort of final couple of webinars for Food Effective Life for this year, we were thinking it would be really good to focus on sustainability and trying to bring that into context in your curriculum teaching. So we've had one webinar already, which was on the 28th of February, and the recording for that is online. And that was much more about bringing where food comes from to life actually in the classroom. So what you can do as teachers, particularly around experiential learning and giving some really interesting and exciting experiences for your pupils. And then we thought it would be great to actually get an opportunity to hear firsthand about how a farmer is actually approaching this in reality and what he's doing with his land and his food production, but also thinking about sort of what the requirements are for you to be teaching. So where food comes from is covered in the cooking and nutrition curriculum if you're in England, and then in the other food curricula around the UK. But also the government has recently introduced a sustainability and climate change strategy for schools. And within that, all pupils should learn about the natural world and also about the importance of sustainability. So again, we thought this was another opportunity to help pupils and teachers really understand that in context. And food and nutrition, whichever country in the UK you're in, is a really good subject to actually cover that and really allow the pupils to understand about sustainability in a context that they'll understand. So what we'll be doing today is James is going to be talking about his mixed farming system and sustainable practices, the three pillars of sustainability and the importance of them, particularly when producing food. James is going to go through some seasonal activities that take place on his farm, and then we'll have a look at some Food Effective Life resources. So James, if you're there, if you'd like to join us. I'm going to go on mute, but I am actually going to go through James's his slides for him. So you'll hear him say the old-fashioned next slide, please, and then we'll work through it. So thank you very much, James. If you could actually introduce yourself before you start, that'd be fantastic. So the teachers know where you're from and your background, that'd be fantastic.
Thanks, Francis. I've never done this before. I assume you can see me. It's a bit odd looking at a screen where you can't see anyone else. But yeah, so I'm James Taylor. I farm with my father, Andrew, on the Broughton Castle estate near Banbury. We're tenants. My great-grandfather moved here in 1914. I'll be the fourth generation. Broughton Castle is our where our landlord lives, the Fiennes family, and I don't know if anyone's got young children that saw Christmas at Mistletoe Farm last Christmas. I was Father Christmas's Double. That was partly filmed here, and we it was on Netflix. And if you go on the Archers, anyone listen to the Archers, or if you go on the homepage on iPlayer, the photos are from here. When someone knocks on your door and they say, "Oh, I've been asking around for the most traditional farm in the area," and everyone sends you here, you're not quite sure if it's a compliment, but it was good fun, and my dog is on there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing a few thoughts with you today about activities that we do. I've just come up to one of my main periods for welcoming school children onto the farm during lambing. I tend to block visits during lambing time, and then sort of late September, early October with a harvest theme. I'm trying to get better at doing visits at other times of year. It's a bit more challenging when most of the animals are outside in the middle of summer, and then obviously in winter when the weather can be pretty variable. A lot of our yard isn't concreted, so that could be a challenge. But yeah, actually, the day this photo was taken here, there's a bus there, so we were having a lambing visit. Next slide, please. Francis? Great. Okay, so the photo, just to point out at the top there with two lambs in nappies, your eyes are not deceiving you. That is two lambs in nappies. I went into a school last week. It's actually a school in a hospital for children with eating disorders, and a friend works there and asked me to come in, and that was a way around the risk assessment, was to put them in nappies. Yeah, so you've got a few things going on there, which I'll just point out. We've got sunflowers. We're in a environmental scheme, the high level stewardship with Natural England, and we've been in that for a number of years. And that has been a real godsend as a tenant. When some years the commodity prices have been very low, it's about trying to diversify your revenue streams, and being in an environmental scheme, which is basically just rewarding us for the way that we've always farmed, has been a real big help. And that's we've got 3 different plots that we leave for birds. The top right one, which I'll get onto in a minute, about talking about soil, that's undersowing a spring cereal. So you've got the livestock production alongside cereal production there. So the oats that are being harvested are either sold for can be for human consumption. We actually keep them to feed to the sheep. Then the clover that's coming through, the animals graze. That's a legume, the rhizobium on the clover, which means that we don't have to buy much fertilizer. We're not organic, but we are very low input. We're a mixed farm. So again, I'm going to talk about, suggest a bit of a definition for sustainability in a minute, but we very much grow wheat, barley, and oats alongside keeping sheep, cattle, chickens, and about 2 million bees. I'm a beekeeper. At the bottom left there, we've got a species-rich meadow, which enabled us to get enough points to get into high-level stewardship. We've got some meadows with 135 different grassland species. And again, that was just the way that we've always farmed. We've never put fertilizer on there. Just always graze them quite lightly. And it's actually the grazing that has helped to maintain and enhance that biodiversity. If we cultivated that field, then a short-term, what you call a short-term lay, short-term grass field might have 5, 6, maybe up to 10 different species of grassland species. But as I say, that's got 135, and we enjoy showing people that in the summer. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just a few facts. So our philosophy, we definitely see ourselves as stewards, as looking after the resource we've been given. And we are risk averse. We've sold some store cattle today, which we have to do every spring to pay the rent. When you're a tenant, especially, you've got the rents paid twice a year. Sometimes you have to make decisions based on the financial reality rather than what you would ideally like. I'd love to have kept those cattle and fatten them, but we always have to sell some store for other farmers to turn out to grass and finish over the summer. It used to be 250 acres, and then as opportunities have arisen, quite common now, someone will move into the village and have a paddock. Oh, what should we do with the paddock? Oh, we'll get the local farmer to keep some sheep there. So we've got quite a few small arrangements like that. So we have a rotation. I imagine you're all familiar with the principles of rotation. Basically, try not to take out more than we put in. So over 6 years, we go wheat, barley, turnips. So we graze lambs born in the spring. Over the winter, those that haven't been sold graze turnips. That's then putting manure back into the soil. It means that we have our organic matters on our soil vary between 10 and 13%, which is very high, and it helps that soil to be really resilient, especially as we get very heavy. Well, we just seem to get raining all the time at the moment, but we don't really get soil erosion. We don't get soil slumping, which if you're just growing arable crops, if you're just growing wheat, barley, rape, and unless you're buying in a lot of manure, the average around here, organic matters would be 2.5%, 3%. So ours are really high, and that helps, as I say, that organic matter helps bind the soil. Helps mean that we don't, as I say, have to buy in a huge amount of fertilizer. We use less than half the recommended rates of NPK bought in artificial fertilizer. Mix system, as I say, we lamb some in February and the majority in March. Late March, early April. We've got do a lambing day. I've got about 12 visits, and then we do something called care farming, which people might have heard about. It's grown over the last 10 years. Basically, there's some local daycare centres that come out on Wednesdays. I think when Francis and Ross came to see a session, it was in the winter and it was a bit muddy. But in the summer, we tend to get more people come along, have up to about 30 people, and we just do well, they're here for an hour and a half to 2 hours on a Wednesday afternoon from some daycare centres, and we just collect the eggs, feed some pigs. I've got 3 pigs. Didn't put those down, did I? Feed the cattle, and then whatever seasonal activities, digging potatoes, feeding lambs from February till June. The main activity is bottle lamb feeding. Yeah, and calves as well. So yeah, so say about our role as stewards, we very much look at the habitats we've got. So mosaic, it's not monoculture. Yes, we've got fields where we just grow wheat, but then the next year that will be barley. The next year will be turnips. Then it will be a short-term clover lay for 2.5 years. So and that's constantly moving around the farm. So I think that's yeah. I mean, you might people may have noticed like the 6 meter margins that you have around arable fields. We have those as well for nesting birds. Bit of a challenge is that people just tend to see that as an opportunity to open access and let the dogs off a lead, and you don't have to have many dogs go around it a week to negate any benefits that you're trying to create. Next slide. I'll get on to some more photos, I think. Yeah. So yeah, sustainability. I've got here my late grandfather's milking stool. My earliest memory is of my grandfather 40 years ago. We still used to milk a cow by hand for the house. And I used to wonder why I had black bits on my Weetabix sometimes. That was if the cow got excited and swished its tail. But funnily enough, my dad's first memory is of his dad, my granddad, sitting on the same stool, but like 40 years beforehand. So yeah, this stool reckons over 100 years old. But the 3 pillars on it are quite good at illustrating the 3 elements of sustainability. And I think it's very much about environmental enhancement, not just maintaining. So seeing how we can create habitats, how we can improve soil structure, not just maintaining. Social, as well as sort of care farming, we also do like a sort of apprenticeship. We have 2 lads here at the moment on sort of day release from college doing MVQs in agriculture, and then over lambing we've got another couple of people coming on work experience. So the advantage of, I think, a mixed farm is that you can offer those opportunities. If you've just got arable and you've got a 300 horsepower tractor, it's very difficult to let someone who's got no experience drive kit that could you really need experience to be able to drive. So we've got small 100 horsepower tractors and a 48-year-old David Brown that people can learn to drive on. And then obviously the financial pillar. Now we'll get on to volatility at the moment. At the moment, the wheat price and the barley price is through the floor, really low. But on the flip side, the lamb and the beef price is really high. Obviously, input costs. There's so many factors that you can't control, weather and prices being the main 2. But with prices, obviously the situation in Ukraine, fertilizer went nuts, which it was a good job that we weren't just reliant on buying in all our fertility, because fertilizer went from about £200 a ton to almost £1,000 a ton in not much more than a year. Well, it's very difficult to do any sort of budget based on that sort of volatility. Yeah, so, and I say resilience, abilities to withstand challenges. So the advantage of having lots of different enterprises is that we never make a fortune, but we've never, in the history of the farm, we've never made a loss because, for example, at the moment the barley price is low, so we'll just work it. So we might feed a bit more barley to our cattle and keep the cattle a little bit longer. So because the beef price is high, so we've got that protein within the system. So we've got the option of either selling or adding value like that. Whereas if we were just arable and the cost of production of wheat is at over £200 a ton, and it's currently about 170 to actually sell. So every ton you sell as a true cost of production, you're losing £30. So as a tenant, you can't afford to put all your eggs in one basket. Oh dear, I've got a cliche, and I'll try and keep away from cliches, but there's one. Next one, please. Yeah, so that's just to reiterate some of the challenges we've got. Won't get political. Obviously, the Brexit situation. The future is likely to be more trade liberalisation. We have some of the highest production standards in the world, and actually, an organisation I I'm on the Beef and Lamb Sector Council for called the Agriculture and Horticultural Development Board. We're basically a levy body where every time you sell a lamb, 80p goes to us, or a cow, or a ton of wheat, or whatever, and we try and promote British produce around the world and improve production standards in this country. And there's a bit of a study going on at the moment comparing our farm assurance, and our red tractor assurance really is ahead of the game. But obviously with trade liberalisation, if you're just looking at commodities, there's always going to be someone in the world who can produce cheaper than we can. So the way that we're trying to get through that on our farm is to try and get as close to consumers as we can. So we're doing a bit more direct selling than we have in the past. Yeah, and there's obviously those the climate issues and the removal of the European subsidy. There's a countryside stewardship where it's called the Sustainable Farm Incentive, which is coming in, which is good. Our issue is that we're already in a countryside stewardship scheme, and some of those options, if you're already in a scheme, you can't go in the Sustainable Farm Incentive option. It's not quite that simple. It's evolving all the time. So it's actually better and more hopeful than I thought it would be, but it is challenging. But yeah, I'm actually more optimistic. Yeah, relatively optimistic that we are going to find a way of bringing in some of the revenue that we've lost through coming out of Europe. Next question, please. Next slide, please. So just to run through the seasons and looking at the job titles of some of the people who've just commented in chat, I think a lot of you have got lots of experience of farming, but yeah, so as I say, school visits, we do an open day, which we've got coming up quite soon. We lamb some outside, some inside. My dad's got very bad knees from rugby injuries, so despite having a double knee replacement, so he likes to lamb inside. I find I try and lamb vast majority outside now because it's better for the sheep's feet. If you have them inside for a long period of time, their feet can get soft and they're more susceptible to pick up infections. A few years ago we had a few prolapses where, again, if you've got them outside, they're moving around all the time, so that's less of an issue. So there's always, any decision you make, like in lots of things, there's always trade-offs. Having them inside is good for visitors because you're more likely to see a lamb being born. I've got the smiley face there. I sometimes, if there's a quiet one in the class, I invite them to do a bit of graffiti on a sheep, and then we've got their initials to look at for the rest of the summer. Then sharing, obviously, one of the commodities where the price is really, really low at the moment is wool. It's recovered slightly, but it's still, you get a lot less for a fleece than what you cost to take the fleece off. But if you didn't do that, then the sheep would be getting stuck on their back in the summer. They'll be more likely to get maggots, fly strike. So you have to do it, but it's one of those jobs where you actually think, oh, this is costing me money rather than make anything. But it's just something you have to do. Next question. Next slide, please. Yes, so summer we make hay in the top left rather than silage. The advantage of that for wildlife is that it tends to be 3 or 4 weeks later cutting the hay, so nesting birds have got more of a chance to nest, and you're less likely to damage a nest or destroy the chicks. Also, the advantage of haymaking is it's cheaper and you don't have lots of plastic to dispose of when bales are wrapped. That's not to knock people who do silage, and nutritionally it tends to be slightly better because the grass is less stemmy, less lignin in there, a bit more digestible. But we make hay. Yeah, bees. I go around collecting swarms, and if you, I'll get a. I was going to get another line in, but I can't remember it. A swarm in May is worth a bale of hay in June, a silver spoon in July, not worth a fly. So if you can get a swarm of bees early on, then they're very valuable. So I like to do that. I have a display hive where I like to show children bees in action. And actually, this is one of my, I've got photos where you can spot the queen down here. I've got some honey. If people want to, they can taste honey when they come out as well. Yeah, so we've already looked at sunflowers, and then we've got another pollen nectar mix in the top right, which we've got 3 plots of that again for our environmental scheme. and that's not as species diverse as the meadows that have always been there, but are still really good source of pollen and nectar. They've got a deer we've got plenty of deer on the farm. And yeah, we've already seen the other photo on the bottom right of undersowing undersowing oats. In the middle there, I've got my dad doing a demonstration of weighing lambs for market and tagging sheep on the way through. Next slide, please. Yeah, moving on to the autumn. So the rams go out. So ewes, with the exception of a couple of breeds, ewes will only get in lamb when the day day length starts getting shorter, so sort of from end of July onwards, really, and that's with the gestation of 144 days. If you get them in lamb then they'll lamb in late January. So say we lamb twice. I don't think I explained why. That's basically again to spread risk. It means that for cash flow, the lambs that are born in end of January, early February, in May and June, we've got something to sell. And as a tenant, you've always got to be thinking about that, because if you lamb in April and then you get a dry summer, you might not have anything to sell until the next winter, which is a challenge when you've got rent to pay. Potatoes, top right, we just grow an acre of potatoes literally just for visits. You cannot get a field of potatoes dug any cheaper than with 6-year-olds coming and digging them into by hand. But no, it's good. And then we send every school home with like a sack of spuds so that people have got something to remember the visit by and to talk about when they get home. And yeah, cows calving as well. We have some suckler cows, and they give birth in September, October. We've just moved breeds. You've got a Simmental there. I'll get onto the environmental issues in just a moment, but we've changed breed to something called a stabilizer, which is smaller, more efficient. The animals finish quicker, and they're better forage converting. So environmentally, it's better. Obviously, red meat does have its challenges. There are advantages in terms of soil structure and keeping nutrients in the system, but we've always got to be aware of the challenges and try and be as efficient as possible. And we've made the decision to move away from the bigger cow, Simmental there, which does over its lifetime will eat a lot more forage than a smaller cow. Aware of time, I'll knock on to the next one, please, Francis. Yeah, turnips. So the reason we've got such high soil organic matter and good soil structure is because we've got animals grazing. So that's both on the permanent pasture and then on the short-term clover lay that we have in the arable rotation and turnips. So we don't buy in loads of protein, a little bit for calves that we buy in some calves as well as those that are born on farm. But basically, most of our feed for the sheep and cattle is produced on the farm. We do some Christmas poultry. Again, that's another way of getting close to consumer, spreading risk, that financial pillar. And we're doing more of that, as well as selling a few potatoes and honey and eggs and some beef as well. So yeah, scanning. Always amazes me how they can tell how many lambs are in a ewe. But yeah, next one. Yeah, so the environment, I just want to talk briefly about that. I try and learn a new flower every year, but then I usually forget the one I learned last year. That's not bird's foot truffle. I'm trying to remember which one that is now. I should have reminded myself before I did this. But yeah, we've got loads of barn owls, and every lambing I put the lights on at sort of midnight or whatever, and a barn owl comes out. That happens at least once. And we've got some barn owl boxes. We've got lapwings. An issue, bottom right issue we've got is there are so many birds of prey now. It's pretty tough for them, and you can't obviously control birds of prey. So I don't know what the long-term solution of that is, because we're creating habitats for nesting lapwings, and they don't really have that much of a chance. So numbers are still quite low. Yeah, so greenhouse gas emissions, we do obviously have a challenge, and we're very aware of that, but it's just to try and put that in context. Sometimes numbers do get conflated a little bit. And I say, I just try and get across the advantages in terms of if you're buying a lot of fertilizer and you're just intensive arable, yes, some farms do go down that route, but then that's very energy intense, the Haber process to actually make that fertilizer. Whereas if you've got nutrients in the system, you've got the advantages of in terms of soil structure and soil fertility, then that obviously needs to be accounted for within that sort of resilient system as well. Next one, please. Yeah, so again, I've already talked about that really, and improving genetics. So that last one there to enhance efficiency. So that's why we've moved to our breed of cow to stabilizer, and you have something called estimated breeding values, and you can actually look at the efficiency of that cow and its go back several generations, and it's amazing how much variation there is, both between breeds, but then within breeds as well, and in terms of finishing times and growth rates. So we are trying to embrace that so that we can be as efficient as possible. And within that overall commitment to work towards net zero, there needs to be some baselining work done so that we can actually show that change and carbon audits. And there are carbon audit software out there. I looked at it last year. It's best part of £1,000. So at the moment, I haven't done that, but it is something we are going to do in the relatively near future. Just need to make a case to Dad that spending that is actually gonna enable us to tell a story and perhaps add value to what we're selling. Next one. I think social. Yeah, so we did a lambing live during COVID, and so we do care farming and school visits. And just a story here. He doesn't mind me explaining his story. That's Matt, a guy from the village who didn't go to school for a while, was really low on confidence, came up to the farm. My dad sort of took him under his wing a little bit, and then got an agricultural apprentice, and he's now on in Australia, head of precision farming for Case New Holland, and actually not just Australia, I think the whole Asia Pacific, but it's amazing. And we've had over the last 10 years about 7 or 8 guys who have come and got their first experience, and most of them have gone on to sort of careers in farming, and so that's really rewarding. And as I say, it's a sort of traditional mixed farm that I kind of facilitates that that opportunity really. Next one. What else we got? Yeah, social. Oh dear, we did I wanted to do a wheelchair accessible path to our chicken run, so we did a naked farmer calendar a few years ago. It went all over the world, which was a bit embarrassing, but anyway, we yeah, I've taken the website down now, but yeah, that was fun. And then yeah, try and think about like when we are buying some calves and try and put them in little groups so children can get involved feeding them. As I say, at the moment, I do tend to block visits in the spring and autumn because that's when you could do more hands-on activities. And then, yeah, talk about on the left there, try and link in, well, where does ask children, make that link in terms of what they're eating, and then link it back to food production. And then we might go and dig a soil pit and look at soil structure. I've got sticky pads that sometimes we go and do, so that people have got something to take home, so they can all the different things they could find. Maybe an owl pellets I've just dissected before, and just bring in the sort of ecosystem messaging around that as well. I've got other things here. I've got a sheaf of barley randomly, and a little hand mill. We've done pancakes before where we actually take wheat, grind it up, and then yeah, just actually cook something, although it's not really suitable in the classroom, so people don't eat it, or make butter, or different things. Next one. What else we got on here? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, financial. So just there about getting close to the consumer. Christmas poultry. That's a little hampers that I do at Christmas. Everything produced from the farm. Swedes, honey, eggs, and different meats. And what have I got? The sheep. Yeah. So financial, and that's really those shoes are in really good nick. So it's still about attention to detail and keeping livestock in the best condition we can. And really, in the system like this, there's always something. And when there's always a weather dependent task to do. With the wet weather we've had now, we haven't planted a spring barley. We start lambing end of next week, and I've got school visits in early April. And I'm just starting to think, oh, April's going to be a bit full on, but that's just the way it goes. But it's just trying to keep it real attention to detail, and if like anything, if you keep your animals in good condition, then any lambing problems you tend to negate early on. Prevention's better than cure. It's always learning. I used to try and keep ewes in really good condition, and then we started having prolapse problems, and then the next year they weren't in such a good nick, and they and we didn't have those issues. So you can overdo it, but yeah, I just want to get across the point about attention to detail. And next one. Yeah, so financial. So I was going to update these figures, and I looked at it and thought, well, I could tell a bit of a story based on this and how they've changed. So feed wheat, for example, the projected production cost is about the same, but as I say, the market price has dropped 50 quid. So that's, you're losing a lot of money every ton of wheat you sell at the moment, which is again the advantage of having lambs to sell, because the market price at the moment for live weight is almost £4. So it's partly caused by the issues with shipping in the Middle East, partly the fact we're just gone to Ramadan, and there's a bit of a supply issue in the UK. Less lambs coming forward, but the price is particularly high, and as is the beef price at the moment. But it's so volatile. So when you get a cow and calf, then there's a 9-month gestation, and then you'll be selling that animal 18 months to 2 years later. So you're trying to predict what the cost is going to be 3 years down the line. So basically it's very different. There's so many factors outside of your control is just the message I'm trying to get across, that the more diverse and the more resilient your system, and the more nutrients you can keep in the system, and the more you can reduce your input costs and keep to family labor as well, then obviously the more resilient and the more sustainable I think you can be. Have we got another one after this? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, that's just a website I've got where I'm trying to go down the direct selling route. My mum does a bit of bed and breakfast. Yeah. I can't remember. Is that the last one? Oh yeah. Oh no, a bit of a SWOT analysis. So yeah. So strengths, I think, are the habitats that we've kind of inherited, but we try and enhance as well as maintain. Planting, like, that's not without its challenges. So we've got pollen and nectar strips, which in a dry summer last year was just waiting for rain so we could establish 2 new ones, and it just got so late in the summer by the time we had enough moisture, because there's no point spending quite good money on seed for those flowers just to have them wilt. So one of them I'm going to have to replant this year. Spreading risk, as I say, keeping nutrients within the system. Weaknesses sometimes, especially at busy times of year, which we're just going into, is finding the off switch. We've got fields right on the edge of villages, and and in local village WhatsApp groups, if someone sees a sheep, slightly lame or whatever, which is good that people let you know, but it can feel sometimes you haven't got the means to just completely switch off, because you're always in the public eye, and there's always weather dependent tasks to do. Opportunity, as I say, getting close to consumers. And then I think, yeah, the threats are, just want to get across that no two systems are the same. Producing meat this way is very different to a big feedlot in Australia or America. And even within this country, there's great diversity. And it's not, we thought about going organic, but because we're a tenant, there are risks within that as well. So it's not, I don't think it's just conventional and just organic. There is a middle way. And then also price volatility, and as I say, removal of the subsidy safety net are also threats. I think that is the last one. Have I? Oh, right. Yeah, Frances, over to you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, James. That was really, really interesting. And we'll come back to you in a minute if there are any questions. So if you do have any questions, do pop them in the chat box, and James may be able to answer them as we go along, or we'll come to them at the end. So a couple of things just about some of the resources that we've got. You may well have seen our knowledge organisers previously. So we have a knowledge organizer for pupils aged right from 5 up to 16 on of every topic that you could want to be teaching about in schools, and particularly around where food comes from, and also food commodities as well. So as you can see there, we've got them for the younger children where they're quite colourful, they've got lots of images on. And then for the older pupils, they're a little bit more detailed, and they really cover all of the facts that the pupils need to know around where food comes from, and also food commodities, and then any other topic that you can think of as well. Lots and lots of where food comes from resources in each of the age phases, and talking about the kind of things that James has been talking about today, and about the different systems and different types of farming. We've got food commodity resources as well, including videos and other resources, PowerPoint presentations, quizzes, etc. And then we've got challenge activities. Now, you may not have come across these, but these are new resources that we developed a couple of years ago, and they are basically sort of standalone packs of resources or activities. So they come as a PowerPoint presentation, and the pupils are given a brief. And so they have to do some work around achieving that brief. And the first part of the PowerPoint presentation has lots of background slides, lots of information for the pupils to get some knowledge behind them before they start thinking about answering the challenge. And then at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, there's lots and lots of links for teachers and additional information for teachers so that they can actually use that to support the activity. So hopefully those are things that you can just pick up and use. And they cover all sorts of different activities, all sorts of different topics. These are the ones on the screen around where food comes from. It could be that they will make something and make a product, a dish, a recipe at the end, or it could be something that could be a poster, or it could be a social media campaign or something. So it's not necessarily always going to be around producing an actual dish. And then they'll get a certificate at the end if that's something that your pupils enjoy receiving. And then there are posters as well. So there's lots and lots of different posters on the website that you can download and print. And if you've got a print room at your school, perhaps you can get them blown up to be A3 or bigger, so you can have them on your walls. And we've got some nice new ones from AHDB on the website, which are all around pigs and pig production. And the one at the bottom is around meeting the experts around pig production. So they're all on the website. The link is on the web at the screen. You will receive this PowerPoint, by the way, so you'll be able to have all of these links. Okay, next slide from me. I mentioned right at the beginning that we've got a webinar recording of a presentation that we did back at the end of February, which was around bringing where food comes from to life in primary and secondary schools. So that's there if you wanted to watch that, to actually sort of bring this all together, to think about some of the other things that you could do with your pupils to actually excite them about where food comes from and the world around them, and sustainability. Before we come to James with any questions, a little bit more about some more training that we've got. Now, this is something slightly different. It's not about where food comes from. It's around cooking on a budget. So on Saturday, we've got a virtual practical workshop taking place, and we do have a couple of spaces available. We've had a few last minute cancellations. So if you'd like to join us, Jenny Elms and I will be online for Saturday morning, and we'll be talking all about cooking on a budget and the kind of hints and tips that you could use in school, but also you could pass on to your pupils and their families. And you'll also have the opportunity to make 3 practical dishes. So practicing your food skills and thinking about applying your knowledge in practice. So bookings available for that, and you can go onto the training area of the professional development page on the website in order to book that. A little bit more training. This is sort of online modular courses that we've got. And then also we've got some other webinar recordings which are on our YouTube channel. And we will actually be coming up with some more ideas and topics for training going forward. Our Food Effective Life year runs from April to March. So we're planning now from what we're going to be doing from April onwards. So if you've got any ideas of something you'd like to be covered or something, a topic you think we should focus on, please do let us know, because we always want to make sure that what we're doing is actually what teachers need. A little bit of something different as well. You may well have heard about a programme that is actually being run by AHDB, and it's being funded by them, and it's a proof of concept pilot which we at the British Nutrition Foundation and also Food Effective Life are supporting AHDB on. And through that, AHDB are providing free ingredients and teaching resources to registered schools, so schools that are taking part in this particular pilot that we're running. So the pilot is based on British pork, dairy and flour and beef. And we've had 2 lots of fortnights already. We had a pork one, which was back in February, and we're currently doing a dairy and flour one at the moment. And pupils, there's about 1,000 pupils taking part in that. And they are having great fun making their homemade crumpets and homemade butter. And it's wonderful. I've been to a couple of the schools, and the pupils are amazed that their crumpets actually look like crumpets and look like the ones they could buy in the shops. So that's been great fun to be able to be involved with. And as well as the ingredients that are being provided by HDB, additional ingredients are being provided by Lidl and also by UK Flour Millers with regards to the flour. So we have got another fortnight that's taking place in April and May. It's all around British beef, and the recipe is going to be this fabulous aromatic beef curry. So if you are working for a school that has your catering provided by Taylor Shaw, Edwards and Blake, Elliot or Hutchison, please do think about getting involved. Unfortunately, we can only work with those particular contract caterers for this pilot. Who knows for the future? But there is an application form online, and do think about getting involved. It's been brilliant so far. Before we finish, just thinking about keeping up to date with Food Effective Life and what we're doing. So we've got an education newsletter. If you're not signed up for that, please do register. That's on the website. We have a training newsletter, which is a bit ad hoc. When we've got something new to tell you, we'll send you an email. We've also got Twitter. And then we've got a dedicated education inbox as for our emails. So if you can't remember my name or Claire's name or Ewan's name, you could send it to education@nutrition.org.uk if you've got a question. So before we finish, I will ask James if there's any questions in a minute, or if I've got any questions, but just to remind you that there will be an evaluation that you'll hopefully be redirected to once we finish the webinar. And if you could please complete that, you'll then get a link to a downloadable certificate. If you don't get redirected, don't worry, I'll send you the evaluation link in an email tomorrow. So just thinking quickly, I'm just going to open the chat box. Welcome back, James. Right, so have you seen some of these questions, James?
Yeah. So that's a good question, Antoinette. I would say I think visitors are often surprised at how full on farm life is. In terms of how do students view mixed farming as a future and sustainable business? I think I don't emphasize the financial side that much to students, and perhaps I should. That has got me thinking, actually. I talk very much about the environment. The social side perhaps is I should also emphasize more, but by having groups out, maybe they can get that. But I don't actually really go into finance as much with students, and perhaps that's a mistake. I tend to just focus on seasonal seasonal task, make visits as immersive as possible. So actually involve people in tasks, depending on their age, whether it's sorting lambs, collecting eggs, little lambing tasks, particularly, so that they actually get their hands dirty. As long as we supervise hand washing afterwards, that's fine, and boot washing. But yeah, I think perhaps I should get across more of the business side so they can see that this is a business where we do have to make a profit. Yeah. Um, that's got me thinking a little bit actually. Yeah.
It must be a challenge, really, because you obviously want to get them excited about what you're doing on the farm and the food and
Yeah.
the production and your sustainability.
Yeah.
But obviously thinking about careers in farming and the fact that it's a wonderful career, but yes, there are challenges, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, I've started doing more secondary school visits. I mean, I started when I was just doing primary schools, and even at lambing time, probably the majority. I think I've got two secondary schools coming out, so the most of them are primary schools. But obviously, depending as children get older, you can have a completely different type of conversation. Even with older students, like we make the link back to food. Oh, I forgot I was going to talk about the orange, just a very quick one. So this is really good for emphasizing the importance of soil and looking after soil and the value of high organic matter, etc. If you take an apple or an orange and people might have done this, ideally with an apple, peel it and halves oceans, and basically you keep going down until you've got 132 1 in 32 of the peel left, and you say the vast majority of our food production comes from that little bit of peel on that 1/32 of the apple, and so maintaining those top few centimeters of soil, and all we can do to enhance that. So just to get people, as well as looking at what's happening on the farm above the ground, also in terms of earthworms and life, and the sort of soil health, and just try and get those messages across as well. But yeah, I need to think more about that question about how children view a sustainable business, because yeah, that's not an avenue I've really done enough on, I think.
That was really interesting, actually, about the orange and the apple. I'll have to speak to you about that again because I think that could be quite a nice activity for teachers to do, something that's quite visual. Right, I think that's all the questions, apart from one for me, just to end on, really, is that it was lovely to see all the different activities that take place throughout the seasons.
Mm.
And I'm sure you love all of the seasons, but is there one particularly that you enjoy farming the most?
Um, yes, the season I like the most. So I'll just look at the question coming in. Challenging thing about farming. I'll answer that as well.
Yeah.
Seasons, definitely April, spring. When lambing goes well, it's really uplifting, new life. Find it myself mentally just really, really a hopeful time. Yes, it's really busy, but there's new life everywhere. It really always amazed me when swallows come back. You think you've just flown thousands of miles to come back to the same barn. It's really sort of humbling. But yeah, so it's always, yeah, April, early May is really exciting. And no 2 years the same, are they? So there's always little surprises to be enjoyed. The most challenging thing about farming is the fact that you can work and really hard, and you can do things to the best of your ability, but your ability to make a profit is largely outside of your control. So those big macro factors which we looked at, the climate change, the fact that we're getting these mild, wet winters and hot, dry summers, emphasize the importance of resilience in your system. But the fact that both the weather and commodity prices are so volatile, and you can have a really good lambing. You can average 2 lambs per ewe, or close to, which is really good, and you can produce a good crop a week. But actually, whether that translates to a sustainable business, you're only under control of
Mhm.
some of those factors, but not all of it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine from year to year, it must be
Yeah.
different challenges present themselves. Um, that's fantastic. Thank you. There is one question actually that I did miss earlier on, in that somebody's asked about booking visits to your farm. How do they go about booking a visit to your
Yeah,
farm, and how?
we've
Yes,
got a website, broughtongrounds.co.uk, or a Facebook page, Broughton Grounds. So yeah, best time for visiting is April or late September, early October. I've tried doing them other times a year, and I will have a go. But if in midsummer it's pouring with rain, because all the animals are outside, people have to come with quite a resilient attitude, which I'm not, they always do, but I just feel it's not quite as I like there to be at least 7 or 8 different activities, so we can have like high energy session with lots of different things to see, and that's just easier in the spring and autumn, because in the autumn we can look at the machinery, we can look at planting, and we can make apple juice, and we can um, talk about harvest, and I've got calves to see. Spring, it's all about lambing, and that's yeah. So that's charges visits are free. Yeah, uh,
visits are free.
yeah. I like Guinness if anyone wants to bring me a drink, but no, visits are free. We're in a environmental scheme with the government, and basically, if a teacher just signs a form, there's no charge. Yeah. But
Fantastic.
obviously, transport costs is the big one, and even local schools who like to come out sometimes, that is an issue, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. So, oh, right. One last question.
Energy.
Energy.
We're in the renewable heat incentive. We've got a biomass boiler, but most of our energy is just off the grid, and uh, long visits can be anything from well, one school come all day, which can get a bit of a challenge, but basically 2 to 3, 4 hours is ideal. Yeah,
Great.
but
Thank you.